Hello, my name is Lucas. This is a bit of lit, and it is time for a tag. A tag I've actually been tagged in. That is the presidential tag created by Steve Donahue to seemingly specifically tag Brian Ed Bookish, who has tagged a whole bunch of other people that he knows are interested in politics, follow politics, are worried about politics, panic over politics. And so there's that. We're going to go through the 10 prompts, and then actually before that I'm going to tag Around the Weird, Mr. Nothing on Around the Weird, because I know he's also interested in politics, and that's all I've got to say about that. Number 1, George Washington, what's the first book you remember reading all by yourself with no help from anybody? I'm going to give 3 answers because I don't really remember. I think the first book I ever remember reading is The Lorax, a Dr. Seuss book about environmentalism. Great book. And I think the first book I remember really trying that's a chapter book is Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, which I really struggled to even bother with chapter books at that time. Oh, also, I guess Trumpet of the Swan I remember reading as well. Loved it. But the first book I remember reading and discussing was The K, which is about like World War One, World War One or World War Two. This boy is on a boat and he gets stranded on an island after his boat is sunk by a U-boat with this man named Timothy, or maybe his name is Timothy. He's a black man with a strong accent. I can't remember where he's from. Maybe somewhere in the Caribbean or something. I don't know. I don't remember. But or maybe they get stuck in the Caribbean. They take care of each other, and he, especially the older man, takes care of this young boy who has gone blind because he looked at the sun near the equator, and it just blinded him for life. And they go through all kinds of trials and tribulations to take care of themselves, and it's a really wonderful book from what I remember. Number 2, John Adams, what book comes to mind that's short but disproportionately powerful? I would have to say Night by Elie Wiesel, a sort of autobiographical, fictionalized accounting, or maybe it is nonfiction, I can't remember. It's been a long time since I've read it, but just a really powerful piece about his experience with his father during the Holocaust, and it's stuck with me, even though I don't remember some details about it, much like The K. I don't remember a lot about it, but I think about these books sometimes and some of the things that, it's trying to get you to think about. So, yeah, not even 100 pages, I think, and it's just burned into my brain. Really wonderful book. I've never read anything else by him, but I do mean to. Number 3, Thomas Jefferson. Tell us about a book you like that's written by a very bad person. I want to say, you know what? Let's go back to what I said about Dr. Seuss, The Lorax. I think the first book I actually did read, the one that I loved the most at least, was There's a Wallet in My Pocket, because I just thought it was really clever. All the rhymes, even though they were really silly and made up and all that. Dr. Seuss. I think Giesel or something. This man is disgusting, and there's a lot to say. Just go look into his relationship with his wife and how all that ended. There's just a lot to say about the person that is Dr. Seuss. I forget his first name, but it's Giesel. I remember because I had my 6th grade teacher was apparently related to him in some way, and would always talk about that and say it proudly, and I'd think that was cool. And then I found out about his home life, not pretty. Okay, number 4. Theodore Roosevelt. Name a book that has more energy than you do, and for me, that would have to be my favorite book of poems, Leaves of Grass by Walt Whitman. It's just bursting with energy and patriotic fervor, which I no longer have at this moment at all in any way. But it does. Reading, I was going to do a little read-along thing, and I plan to one day for each part of Song of Myself from Leaves of Grass, because I just love Walt Whitman. But right now, I just can't, because I got a lot on my mind, and I don't want to think about American nationalism, which is very much what Walt Whitman is about. But, different time and sort of a different spirit, certainly than the kind of American nationalism we have now, which is vile and revolting. Not to say, Walt Whitman, I'm sure, had some questionable beliefs at best, but yeah, Leaves of Grass, just so much energy and power in his poetry, and I really love it, and it makes me wish there was an America like that ever, but yeah, or maybe something by Langston Hughes, some book of poems, because he's just got so much energy and oomph to his poetry. Anyway, where was I? Number 5, Franklin Roosevelt. Is there a book that fundamentally changed your conception of reading? And for me, that's probably Great Expectations by Charles Dickens. It was one of the first books I read, one of the first ones I read in university that just opened my mind to Victorian literature and to all literary fiction and just the pleasure of reading. Even though it's sort of long-winded and has all sorts of coincidences to fit the narrative and is very silly and extremely dark and funny in some ways, but extremely, extremely dark. I think I heard Steve Donahue say that it was a return to form. I don't to his older humor, and I don't see that at all. I don't know what he's talking about. I think he's out of his mind, or maybe I heard him wrong. Probably I'm out of my mind, because it's so dark. Anyway, but yeah, that made me really, once I read that book, I really started reading more of everything. So thank you, Charles Dickens, for that. John Kennedy, number 6, John Kennedy. What's the most glamorous it book you've ever read? Harry Potter, maybe, I'm guessing. I mean, that's the only thing I can think of that is, like, when it was coming out, it was like you had to read it, and I did, and I loved them, and I don't anymore necessarily. I have fond memories of growing up with it, but I have gone through the books again, just to see, and it was nice. But there are plenty of other children's books that I have read since I work with sort of a children's library, that I always think, like, man, why didn't I read these when I was growing up? They're so much better, but they weren't coming out at the time I was growing up. They had already been out, so could have gotten them, but they weren't the new it thing, the thing you had to read. So number 7, Gerald Ford. Have you ever read a placeholder book, something that only served to get you from one book to another? I would have to say that I tend to just read one book at a time, but maybe this is one I don't really think I have, but maybe what is it called? The Dark Tower book. I read it 2 months ago, I think, but I made a video of it last month, and in a way, it would, every book that I read for a couple months was just, I need to read this so I can read the next one so I can get more words so I can win my reading race competition. So in a sense, that would be my answer, especially the Dark Terror series, which I will be reading all of them and discussing all of them. Even though I'm not a huge fan of that one, it was okay, kinda. Number 8. A reading experience you loved, despite how utterly sinful it was. The Story of the Eye by George Bataille. It is horrifying. It is terrible. It is awful. Everything that happens in it is absolutely disgusting. It's nothing but smut. Don't read it. I'm telling you, do not read it. Apparently, it's really popular in academic philosophy circles. I'm guessing because of the relationship of sex and death and the self-destructive drive kind of thing, and Freudian things. And it's it's an interesting book. It's my favorite reading experience is having Around the Weird, Mr. Nothing's Around the Weird, read it to me so that he could stay with me rent-free for a while. I would have let him stay anyway, but I wanted him to read it. I don't know why. That was good fun. But it is such a sinful book. Number 9, George W. Bush, What's the Most Harmful Book You've Ever Read? And I never read it, I never finished it, but I tried to read Mein Kampf once just to see how insane it is, and I couldn't get past, like, 3 pages, 5 pages, 10 at the most. I think it was just 5 pages, and I said, no. This has got to go. Get out of my life forever. And that's about it. Incredibly dangerous, harmful book. I will never read it. It's not worth it. I don't care about any historical value it has I don't need to read that. It's a waste of my time. And it did a lot of harm. And there are people who... Number 10, Barack Obama. What's the last great book you read, flaws and all? Well, I guess I read Shuggy Bain, which was great, by Douglas Stewart. I'm going to give 2 answers. Shuggy Bain by Douglas Stewart, really great. But one book I loved even more was Shuggy Bain is a Booker Prize shortlist nominee. I don't know if it will win. Maybe it should. I haven't read any of the others. But I don't know. War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy. Oh my God. It's just amazing. Just absolutely phenomenal. About the Russian aristocracy during the Napoleonic Wars and the incredible depth that he goes through to explore history and free will and war and Napoleon and the aristocracy and all these things that Leo Tolstoy explores, and so much more. There's so much humanity and depth and the joy of life in a way in it that I treasure that book. It took me a very long time to finish, but I'm quite happy that I only read a couple. I was trying to burn through it for the reading race, but I went back to where I had gotten to and just read a little bit at a time each day, and eventually finished it near the end of like the 29th of October, and it was worth it to take my time with it. It was a very beautiful book in many ways. And that's all I've got to say. Besides that, I hope everybody votes for Joe Biden. I'm not going to mince words here. Or if you were planning on voting for Trump, just don't vote for him. You know? You don't have to vote for Joe, just don't vote for Trump. That's it. Goodbye. Have a good election week. I'll be on YouTube, but I will be checking out of Twitter and all these things, because it's gonna be ugly. Goodbye.